very recently I was playing a game of thread chicken and I won, managing to just complete that last stitch without having to start a new thread and ending up with only this tiny end of thread left. So I figured that you might like to see how I did it. Hi there Stitchy friends, I'm Kat from Catkin and Lillie, bringing you all the best tips, tricks and tutorials so you can learn more about all things stitchy, grow your stitching skills and get the most joy from your stitching. So first let me explain thread chicken for anyone who's never come across this. I think you might know what it is, but maybe haven't called it that. It's when you're running close to the end of a piece of thread and you're desperately trying to get those last few stitches finished as your thread gets shorter and shorter. It becomes a game of chicken to see who can hold their nerve and win, you or the thread. Now, I've mentioned this before in a video where I showed you how to run in a tiny thread end or ends that you may be left with after winning at thread chicken or because of having snipped and unpicked a few stitches. I'm using the same technique here today, but I wanted to show you how it can be used to complete a final stitch as well as running in the end. So this is handy in a situation like this, where you've used the thread right down to the point where you can't even really keep it in the eye of the needle while you push your needle through the fabric because it's just far too short. So one option you can use here is to push your needle partially through and then try and thread that little end through the eye so that you can pull it through. Now that does work, but I do find it really fiddly to do, especially if the ends have got a little bit fluffy, as they usually do towards the end of a thread. I can just feel my frustration building if I try and do that. So here's another option and what I think is the best way to try and finish this annoying little piece of thread. You're going to need another short piece of thread. Just grab any old bit that you've got lying around. You don't want it too long, something about this length is fine, and you're going to fold it in half like this and thread that up in your needle so you've got a loop at one end. So I've got this short piece of thread in my needle with my loop, and then I'm going to push the needle through. I can take that needle all the way through and I'm just going to leave a loop on the front. And then I'm going to place my loop over my little short thread end. I like to hold on to that so I can see it's going to stay in the loop, and then we're going to pull this all the way through and it's just taken your thread through to the back. So then we would do exactly the same. Push your needle up the front, take your loop over the thread and pull it through, and now it's back on the front again. And then one final pass, putting that through, and again pulls that through to the back, and I've finished my stitch. And then, as I mentioned, we use the same technique to run the end in, and this is what I showed in the previous video, which I will link in a card and in the description for you if you want to take a look at that. But we're going to use the loop. I'm going to push my needle through a few stitches on the back. Again, I'm going to take my loop over the short piece of thread and then pull it through, and that's now been run in, and you can snip that end off. Obviously it's pretty short end there. I'm still going to snip that off. Nice and short. And then you can sit back put on your best smug face because you just totally beat that thread at Thread Chicken. Yay! Now I reckon if I'd wanted to, I could probably even have squeezed one more stitch out of that tiny little piece of thread. Maybe not. And sometimes you are just not going to make that thread go any further, and you may need to start a new thread for a few stitches. But if it's just that one last stitch, then this tip could really help you out. If you enjoyed this video, it would be awesome if you could give it a thumbs up, drop me a comment or subscribe to my channel, because then you won't miss a single stitch and it will help my tips and tutorials reach and help more cross stitchers. You may also like to join my Patreon community of Stitchy friends, where I share more cross-stitch goodness, including Stitchy chats, exclusive patterns and giveaways, and so much more. Until next time, thank you so much for watching, and happy stitching.